I want to tell you about a quilt that I thought was going to be so easy. The pattern said deceptively simple. No Y seams, no templates, no tricky piecing. I thought, great, I've got this. And then I sat down to make it and I realized that deceptively simple was doing a lot of work in that sentence because this quilt didn't demand complicated techniques from me. It demanded something harder. It demanded that I slow down my sewing. Hey Star Stitchers, I'm Kristen with ISeeStarsQuilting.com. Welcome back. This is a judgment-free zone always, and today I want to talk to you about a quilt pattern called the Shimmer quilt pattern by Cluck Cluck Sew, and I want to talk about what making this quilt pattern taught me about the relationship between precision and creativity, because I used to think that those two were in tension with each other. Turns out they're not. And this took me a lot longer to learn than I'd like to admit, okay? Precision is actually what sets the creativity free. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why slowing down on your seams is not the boring part of quilting. It's the part that makes everything else possible, okay? Let's go. Okay, so here's the honest thing about being a beginner quilter, or honestly about being any kind of creative person actually. We tend to be impatient. I was impatient. I still am impatient occasionally. And I come from a painting background where you can see results very quickly. Okay, you lay down a stroke, you step back, you see it, you're like, yes, yes, no, no, whatever. The feedback loop is fast, okay? Quilting is different. You piece a block and it looks fine, okay? It looks like nothing's wrong. You piece 5 blocks and it still looks like nothing's wrong. And somewhere in the middle stretch where you're making piece after piece and you're getting comfortable and the vision isn't visible yet, the temptation to rush is so real. To skip the pressing, okay? To eyeball the seam instead of measuring. To just sew the next seam and keep moving because surely close enough is close enough, right? And sometimes it is close enough and sometimes it absolutely is not close enough. And the tricky part is that you usually can't tell which one it is until you're 20-something blocks in and something is very wrong. The thing about rushing in quilting, it doesn't announce itself immediately, right? It compounds quietly. And by the time you see it, undoing your mistakes is a project of its own. And I learned this lesson more than once, but we're going to talk about this specific project today, okay? Shimmer is where it really landed hard for me. And I do mean hard. So Shimmer is a pattern by Allison Harris of Cluck Cluck Sew. And it is, I want to be clear about this, okay? This pattern is genuinely gorgeous. It's beautiful. The finished quilt looks like light catching on water or a handful of jewels thrown across a bed. It is geometric, it's scrappy, it's colorful, and it just glows. And when I say that I nailed the fabric pairing on this quilt, I really nailed it. I genuinely am obsessed with this quilt. I still think about this quilt from time to time. And the construction of each block is really straightforward. Each block is made from a simple pieces, right? It's squares, half square triangles, no Y seams, no curves, no templates, the kind of pattern that looks complicated, but it isn't, which is my favorite kind of pattern, right? So why did this quilt make me slow down? Why did it require me to slow down? Okay, it was because of the fabrics that I chose for it. All right, I had fallen in love with this collection of fabrics. It's a whole explosion of color, pinks, purples, blues, warm neutrals, and I wanted all of them spread out across this quilt like confetti, all right? Not clustered, not heavy in one corner. I really wanted a nice balance of color all throughout. I didn't want it too sparse in one area. I wanted even all over shimmer of color. Every fabric touching every other fabric, color moving across the whole surface like it was alive. And here's what I realized pretty quickly. That vision only works if the blocks are accurate. If the seams are right, if the half square triangles are trimmed consistently, if everything lines up the way that it's supposed to. Because when the piecing is off, even if it's just a little bit, the blocks don't nest together well, okay, the way that they should. And when the blocks don't nest and your seams don't line up, the design does not read correctly. All those beautiful fabrics become a muddy mess that looks like a very poorly done tile job instead of this glowing, shimmering thing that I had in my head. The only thing standing between my vision and that muddy mess, it was my 1/4 inch seam. Every single time. Every single time, okay? That got my attention because my seams weren't lining up. I wasn't getting those gorgeous, perfect corners. So let's talk about what precision means in a pattern like this, because I think when somebody says, be more precise, that advice sounds right, but it actually does nothing, okay? So I want to make this video actually useful to you, whether you're working on the shimmer quilt or you're working on a different quilt pattern. When you're making a quilt like shimmer, where the whole design depends on the blocks lining up and the visual effect reading across the full surface, every seam is a design decision. Not metaphorically, okay? Literally, if your 1/4 inch seam is consistently too wide, your blocks are going to come out slightly smaller, and slightly small blocks mean slightly off intersections, and slightly off intersections mean the design starts to break down right where it's supposed to sing. So here's the first thing that I want you to take away. Precision in piecing is not about perfectionism. It's about intention. It's about making sure the quilt you finish matches the quilt that you imagined, right? And this is where a lot of quilters rush. I've gotten better with my half square triangles and a lot more patient with those. But here's the thing about half square triangles. When you sew them, they come out slightly bigger than you need. All right. So when you see the phrase trim down your half square triangles to the correct size, yes, the pattern designer actually wants you to cut off that tiny, tiny bit of fabric in there, okay? And they definitely want you to cut off the little extra triangles on the edges of your half square triangles, okay? That's intentional. You're supposed to trim them down to size. I know that trimming feels like an extra step. I know it slows you down, but here's what happens when you skip it. If your half square triangles are all slightly different sizes, not even by much, but enough that when you go to sew them into a block, things don't quite line up and you can kind of fudge it. But when you sew those blocks together, the design starts to wobble. And I found that out in this pattern, okay? For a quilt like this, when the whole effect depends on that geometric grid and precision, untrimmed half square triangles, they show. They will show up in the finished quilt. And it may be more errors than you really want in your quilt. That's it. You have to do it. And it makes everything downstream on the quilt process seem so much cleaner. Okay, this next tip is specifically about making a scrappy multi-fabric quilt where you want color spread out evenly, because this was the other thing that the shimmer quilt pattern taught me. I did use a curated like fat quarter pack for this quilt pattern. But when you're working with a lot of different fabrics, especially when some of them are in a similar colorway or a similar design, it's really easy to accidentally cluster. All right. Suddenly, when you lay them all out and you step back, all the blues are in one corner and the pinks are in another, and the quilt feels unbalanced, even if your piecing is perfect. Okay. So yeah, we're getting into like the really nitty gritty stuff today. Okay. Here's what I actually did. Before I sewed a single block together, I laid my cut pieces out on my design wall or the floor if you don't have a design wall, and I just looked. I moved things around. I stepped back. I squinted. Squinting is underrated, by the way. When you squint at a layout, the individual fabrics kind of blur and you start to see value, light and dark instead of patterns. And that can tell you a lot about whether the visual weight is balanced. Another thing that I've heard quilters do is they take a picture with their phone, change it to grayscale mode, and that makes it much easier to see, oh, light, dark, all right? I kept shuffling until the colors felt like it was moving across the whole surface. It's not perfect, it's not even, it is just alive. And then I sewed it together. I took a picture so I could remember which fabric went with which fabric, and I put it together. That layout step, I mean, it probably took me a good 45 minutes to an hour, and that was the best use of time that I spent on that quilt because it meant I only had to do it once, and I certainly didn't have any blocks that I wasn't happy with in the end. So here's what I want to leave you with today. I used to think that slowing down was the price you paid for quality. Like, yes, maybe your quilt will be better, but you're going to enjoy it less because you can't just go. I mean, there is something about just pedal to the floor and speed quilting your way through it, right? But I was wrong about that. Slowing down on the shimmer quilt didn't make the process less enjoyable. It made it more enjoyable. And because I trimmed every single stinking half square triangle accurately, and I felt it click into the blocks exactly right? I knew that those seams were lining up without me having to like cross my fingers or like white knuckle my way through it, and it felt so good. I felt like such a better quilter while I was piecing. Every time a row of blocks nested together cleanly and lay completely flat, yes, that felt good. Every time I stepped back and I saw the color spreading evenly across the whole design wall, exactly the way that I had imagined it in the beginning, that felt like the whole point. That felt like what I was supposed to be doing, okay? Precision is not the opposite of creativity. Precision is what lets creativity land. It's the difference between the quilt in your head and the quilt on your bed. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it kind of worked, right? And for a beginner especially, I want you to hear this. You don't have to be fast to be good at this. The fast looks impressive, okay? You don't have to power through. The quilters who make the most beautiful things are almost always the ones who took their time, setting the bar a little bit lower, not on quality, but on how fast it has to happen. That's not giving up. That's quilting like somebody who loves what they're doing and cares for the end product and how it's going to look. Hey Star Stitcher, if you are not subscribed yet and this kind of honest, practical quilting content is what you are here for, I would love to have you stick around. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every single week, and if you want a community where you can share your layouts, your blocks, and your I finally got the half square triangles right moments, the Stitch Sister Inner Circle is my private membership group. If you are interested in finding more quilters who are just nice, kind people, the link is in the description box for you to check out more information on that. All right, the Shimmer Quilt by Cluck Cluck Sew. Deceptively simple pattern. Genuinely demanding quilt. And it has been one of my favorites that I have ever made because it taught me something that I really, really needed to know. It taught me to slow down, to trim my half square triangles every single time, to lay out my fabrics before I sew, and to shuffle until the colors feel alive, until they feel right. But also, last thing is, it taught me to trust that precision isn't slowing you down. It's the thing that makes everything possible. So I want to hear from you. I'm also going to leave a link down to the shimmer quilt pattern down below this video because yeah, it's gorgeous. I highly, highly suggest making it. I highly suggest listening to the advice that I gave you before because there is nothing like learning through experience. Okay, there's nothing like learning through experience. Take my experience to heart. Go make your own shimmer quilt pattern. It is super, super impressive quilt pattern. Okay, and I want to know, have you ever made a quilt that taught you something unexpected, a pattern that asked more of you than you thought it would? Tell me in the comments. I read every single comment and I want to know. I want to know what you're working on. And if this video was helpful to you, a thumbs up, liking this video means more than you know. It helps this channel reach more quilters who need it. So thank you so much for that. I hope you have a great day. I'm Kristen with ISeeStarsQuilting.com. Enjoy the rest of your week and I will talk to you soon. Bye.